What is a designer baby? A designer baby is a human embryo that has been genetically modified, usually following guidelines set up by the parents or scientists to produce desirable cosmetic traits. This is done using various methods such as gene therapy or pre-implantation genetic diagnosis, PGD. Designer baby is also referred as cosmetic embryo, where they screen embryos, and embryos that are disease-free are placed back in the uterus, genetically engineered in vitro for specially selected traits, which can vary from lower disease risk to gender selection that could be selected, including obesity, eye color, height, athletic, hair, sex, and many more. In medicine, genetics, pre-implantation genetic diagnosis, PGD or PIGD, which is also known as embryo screening, is a procedure performed on embryos prior to implantation, sometimes even on oocytes prior to fertilization, IVF. Ethical problems. Creating designer babies could lead to dystopian world in which it could lead to eugenics. Individuals that are bred or designed to suit social preferences by creating modified genes to genetically enhance people may start to feel superior to those who haven't been enhanced and will be looked down upon. Such groups of people may become prejudiced against one another due to feeling of lost common of humanity non-enhanced people. Creating such a race of superior and modified human beings will also have a big impact on the entire human gene pool, which will lead a huge gap in society, in which case many essential human characteristics could be under the threat of being wiped out, as well as unskilled lab technologies could damage embryo during biopsy and can lead to ovarian hyperstimulation syndrome, which is one of the most common complications in fertility treatment. While selecting embryo of embryo screening, it can kill embryos that could have grown into humans, as there's a risk of several mutations, viruses, and disease that altering gene can lead to. Nowadays, it's difficult to know when altering genes can cause birth defects and illness that will affect a child's life forever. It is not proven that all genetic engineering babies survive or develop exactly like how the parents wanted it to be, in which they terminate the pregnancy which was once going to be developed as a baby. Designer babies are playing God, as once we tamper with nature, we will be considered to be playing with God's creation.
You could design your baby's features, would you? According to LA's Fertility Institute, prospective parents can select eye color, hair color, and more.
The technology is called pre-implantation genetic diagnosis, or PGD. It was created to screen for disease, then used for gender selection. Now this clinic plans to allow parents to select physical traits.
I would predict that by next year we will have determined sex with 100% certainty on a baby, and we will have determined eye color with about an 80% accuracy rate.
Dr. Jeffrey Steinberg is a pioneer in vitro fertilization.
I think it's very important that we not bury our heads in the sand and pretend that these advances aren't happening.
Kirsten and Matt Landon used his clinic to select the sex of their daughter. Choosing other genetic traits intrigues them.
I would have considered trait selection as an option, but not necessarily have gone with it.
A recent U.S. survey suggests most people support the notion of building a better baby when it comes to eliminating serious diseases. But Dr. Steinberg says using technology for cosmetic reasons shouldn't scare people away.
Of course, once I've got this science, am I not to provide this to my patients? I'm a physician. I want to provide everything science gives me to my patients.
You've come a long way, baby. Hattie Kaufman, CBS News, Los Angeles.
But is that a good thing? Joining us from Philadelphia, Dr. Arthur Kaplan, director of the Center for Bioethics at the University of Pennsylvania. Good morning, Dr. Kaplan.
Good morning, Meg.
Let me quote Dr. Steinberg. He just said that he predicts we will have determined sex with 100% accuracy and eye color with 80% accuracy in the next year. Does that give you pause at all?
It does. I think he's wrong. I don't think we're going to get to eye color and hair color and freckles for a couple more years, but he's right in principle. We're headed that way. It is going to be possible to pick traits not because of diseases or avoiding dysfunction, but because somebody has a taste for a particular child or a preference for a particular child.
He says that if it is available, why not offer it to his patients? He says he has the obligation as a doctor to do so. Do you agree with that?
I disagree completely. There are really three things, Maggie, to think about here. One is when you move away from diseases, who's to say what's the better trait? Is it better to be redheaded than it is to be brown-haired? Is it better to have freckles or not? Those sorts of things I think are very subjective and in some ways driven by our culture. Secondly, you're going to have the rich using these technologies, and that's going to advantage them further. It's not going to be something the poor get to do. Lastly, you got a problem here. Why are doctors in this business at all? The doctor said, I have to serve my patients, but is this just a cash business where you'd say, I want a child with short arms, I want a kid with athletic ability? Yeah, okay, well, we'll do that. Is everything and anything for sale at the fertility clinic?
The case of the woman who had octuplets has raised so many debates like this. The doctor who implanted 6 embryos is being criticized. A lot of people say there should be a law prohibiting that. Do you think there should be laws prohibiting this?
Yes, absolutely. And the time to start this discussion is right now. For example, I don't think you should get any of these traits offered to you without some counseling. So you can think about, well, is this that important to me? Is this really going to make that much difference? You don't want to saddle children with false expectations. The parents pick a kid to be smart, the kid doesn't succeed, now they're mad because they spent a lot of money to do this, they don't get what they want. We need more oversight of this industry, and I think this is going to turn out to be one of the biggest issues in the next 10, 15 years, the extent to which we design our babies and who's going to be able to call the shots, if you will, on whether the technology gets used to do it.
We shall see. Dr. Arthur Kaplan.
Designer baby should be illegal due to the fact that it could potentially end individuality. If allowed, it will have a bad impact in our world. It will end in many people thinking that anyone else who seem are disgusting and people are scared of them and will be looked upon as foreigners. People who have genetic defects would be socially excluded from other kids. They will be separated from the society. Today, people who have genetic defects are already treated different and put away from the public in 7 different parts of the world. Designer babies will lead to injustice on the basis of certain enhancement, which will lead to genetic upper class people. This gives them an unfair advantage over other kids. Also, people that aren't able to afford genetic engineering will be looked down at, therefore creating a greater problem in the world. Even though most parts of the world are still dominated, the gender of the baby can lead to gender discrimination across the globe. For example, China and India, where boys are preferred over girls, will go crazy with the idea of sex selection. Although there are some benefits of creating a designer baby, I believe that the risk is much higher than the possible positive outcomes that might take place. Even though altering the child's gene could save someone else's life, it can also leave the child with harmful viruses, disease, and mutation. Other than physically damaging your child, you could also hurt them emotionally by making them feel that they are obligated to perform the ability that they were created for.